on the. Well, good afternoon and good morning, grade 4, 5, and 6. So nice to see you. Hello, I'm Sherry Saville. I'm the Indigenous Education Advisor for Halton Catholic District School Board. And today we have Moses Lunham, who's going to walk us through a very important painting. And it's a beautiful painting that you have behind you, Moses. I know that we are set up for Treaty Week. November is Treaty Awareness Week. And so we wanted to do something different. We wanted to have you in the room with us, but we also wanted to learn a little bit more about these really important treaties that we have. And behind you is the Dish with One Spoon treaty. And I know Moses will talk a little bit about it. But everyone, welcome Moses. Hello, Moses. And we're so thrilled to have you here. And so for the next little while, Moses will be your host. I'm going to be in the background. And Moses will be your host, and he'll be walking all of us step by step through this beautiful painting that he has on the side. So again, welcome Moses, and we're so happy and thrilled that you're here.
Miigwech, Buju, and hello everyone. Thank you for having me as part of your day today, and as well, thinking about the Treaty Recognition Week. Yeah, and just a little bit of brief history or information about who I am. Once again, my name is Moses Lunham. I'm from the community of Kettle and Stony Point First Nation. Now, my community can be found on the southern shorelines of Lake Huron. Over by, maybe you've heard of a place called Sarnia, Ontario, a little bit over that way. So a little bit of a distance, a little bit of drive if we go west from your area. And my community is part of the Anishinaabe Nation, so that would make me an Anishinaabe, and which is very important. My people have been in this area of the Great Lakes area for many, many years, and maybe you are often reminded, maybe with the when you're starting of your day with land acknowledgements, and which is very important. And that also kind of ties in as well with what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to be sharing with you a very, very important wampum belt today. One of the very first treaties that was established here on Turtle Island prior to contact. So it was very, very, very significant. And as well, as part of our learning today, I'm an artist. I've been an artist for what seems like forever, and this creative journey started for me when I was just a young boy. And from the time I could pick up a pencil or a marker or crayon or the paintbrush, I realized the Creator had blessed me with this creativity. And so as part of this journey, I've learned many, many things along the way, many, many stories, and of course, many, many things about my culture as an Indigenous person. So today, we're going to be talking about treaties, one specific treaty, one particular wampum belt, which is called the Dish with One Spoon. As I mentioned, it's a very, very significant because it is considered one of the oldest, or maybe perhaps the first treaty that was made in this area. And I'm just going to show you a little an example of what it looks like for those who may have never seen this before, because that's what it's all about. There are many, many types of treaties, many, many types of wampum belts. But remember this one because like as I mentioned, it is one of the first in this area. Now, as you can see, what I did here is I've actually painted this the Dish with One Spoon. So this is just an artistic expression of what that could look like. What I did here is I just used one of my old canvases, and I used a piece of the canvas to paint this image on the front of it as well. And as you can see, it's quite long. All right, so if we were able to look at the belt, and it still is in existence, where can we find wampum belts? Well, certainly at the museum. Now, this one here in particular, the Dish with One Spoon, it actually can be found at the ROM, which is in Toronto. So if you want to know and look it up and see the actual what it looks like, definitely Google that and search it out, and you can see where that belt still is, or where it's at. And like I said, that belt is probably about, oh gosh, we're going back to the 1600s, so 400 or 500 years, somewhere in there in that time frame. That's how old this belt is. And you may wonder, well, little bit more details about it, how this belt came to be, because as I mentioned, my community is part of the Anishinaabe people, or the Anishinaabeg Nation is what we call it. And we've been here for since time immemorial in this area of the Great Lakes. But over time, we realized that, you know, First Nations people are hunters and gatherers. So we would move around, right, to different areas where the game was good, where the food was good. Sometimes we roll with the seasons, right? You know, we knew that we had to move around. And as we know, we come to understand there are many, many nations here across Turtle Island. And some of the nations which are down south of us, some of them came up this way, you know, once again, looking for game and whatnot to, you know, to survive, right? Hunting and gathering. And so in this particular time when the belt was made, we realized that the Haudenosaunee people, which is, if I were to translate that word, is called the people of the Longhouse, came into our territories because they were coming from the eastern part of Turtle Island, specifically around the area of New York. And they were coming up into this area. And we recognized and realized that, yeah, you know, here's another nation. You know, we're open to sharing this land. And so when we opened it up, we realized that we had to have some rules, okay? Some rules in order to how we're going to share this land. And so what we did is we made promises, all right? So yeah, so we could look at those as being promises. We promised, you know, they actually came up with 3 things. So what they did is that they made 3 conditions or 3 promises. And the first one was to take only what you need from the land, okay? That was the very first one. The second one was to leave something in the dish for others, which is very, very important when you think about it, right? So yeah, so let's not take everything. Let's leave something there for future generations so that they can survive and continue going on. And the third one was to keep the dish clean, which is very, very important when I think about it, especially today. And yeah, you know, ever since this pandemic has started, I've seen a lot of, you know, we think about pollution, right? And I've been seeing a lot of masks kind of out and about. And so we're not doing as good a job as we could, right? Keeping the area clean, keeping that this land clean, because once again, we need to have that for future generations. So yeah, I'm going to show you a little example about that certainly why they call it the dish and how we look at that dish and what we think of when we look at that dish. So what they did is, as an artist who created the wampum belt, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that as well, how that belt was created. But the main image, okay, is of a bowl. So we think of that as the land. Everything that Mother Earth has created is in this bowl. For example, like water. Water is very important. Plants, right? We need those plants to eat and give us nourishment, but as well for our medicines. They're all in this dish. Also animals, right? Like I said, our people are hunters and gatherers, so we would move around to certain areas. So that's all in that dish. And but it's really quite interesting when we look at the symbol itself. I'm going to show you the painting here, right? So this is our dish, and we got this little mark right here. It looks like a little rectangle, right? Simply because it's the beads that are put together. But this would symbolize what they chose to symbolize, very interesting. What they chose to symbolize, everything that's within that bowl, is a beaver tail. Yeah, they chose the beaver tail. Very, very interesting because, well, there's a little bit more to that as well if we could study more in depth about the Haudenosaunee people and the beaver. But yeah, so what they did is they put the beaver tail inside that dish. So that was the symbol that they chose for everything that would be in that dish. Now, also, the reason why they call it the spoon is because as part of the agreements that they were making, they chose the spoon simply because, well, it's not a sharp object, right? They were there to share everything within the land, and there was no threat for harm to each other. And by putting a spoon there, yeah, that was certainly a good choice to have that as part of the wampum belt. So there we go, a little bit about why they call it the spoon, because when we're sharing the land, yeah, we need that spoon for a good bowl of soup or something like that. All right, so there we go. A little bit about the symbol, how it came about. Let's talk about how wampum belts were made. So as an artist, the wampum belts were made to serve as a memory as, yeah, we made these agreements. This is a visual reminder of those promises that we made to each other. And now the dish with one spoon was made between two nations. Okay, so the Anishinaabeg Nation, which I'm part of, and the Haudenosaunee people. Now, the Haudenosaunee people, as I mentioned, come from the eastern part of Turtle Island. So what they did, they made the wampum belts, and they would use two shells to make the wampum belts. Those shells are called the quahog shell, which is a purple shell, and a cowrie shell, which is a white shell. And I think maybe you've been to, maybe some of you have been to the ocean and you walk the shoreline and you see those shells that are on, you hold it up to your ear and you can hear the ocean. Yeah, that type of shell was used to create the white beads. So yeah, so that's how it was made. And of course, parts of the deer, right, to make the string. So there we go, a little bit of history, information of how the wampum belts were made. And once again, being an artist, you know, very important thing that you can do to document those agreements, those treaty agreements. All right, I know that's a lot there, guys, but I just wanted to share that with you and think about, well, you know, today, do treaties still apply today? And yes, they do. Yeah, today we still have those agreements in place for all the sharing of the land. So that's very important as well. And it's also very important to remember the spirit in which those nations come together, in the spirit of friendship, mutual respect, respecting each other's way of life and living. That's all part of it. And of course, peace, which is very important, because sometimes things happen between these two parties where someone's not acknowledging or keeping their promises, and things can happen, and therefore there's no peace. So that's very important to remember as well. Okay, guys, I know you're all waiting and ready to create. Let's get ready into this. Let's take a look at this image here, what we're going to create today, our project, so we have a good understanding of what we're doing today. And once again, like I said, this is an artistic expression of what that belt represents, the dish with one spoon. So I felt, well, because of the the materials that we're using today, of course, we don't have a long canvas where everybody can make a belt like I did, but everybody, I'm sure, has a piece of paper or a piece of Bristol board, 8.5 by 11, something like that. We'll use that as our image source of inspiration, work within those parameters. And of course, I've decided to put the dish, or that main symbol that I talked about, right here, right? So that's part of the lower part of our canvas or painting area. And then up here, this is where we have all those things that we talked about a little bit. I chose the strawberry as opposed to the beaver tail, just simply because that is part of what comes from the area, this area. It is considered one of the very first berries of the season in summer, or sorry, late spring. And of course, we talk about how two nations or people coming together, making those agreements. And as you can see, their hands are joined together. Sometimes that's, as we know, a handshake, symbolizes an agreement that has been made. So there we go. So a little bit of information about our painting, our project today. Once again, when you create this, you will be able to share it with your family, your friends, and have a better understanding of what treaties are about. Certainly the dish with one spoon, and it's certainly good to talk about. All right, let's get right into creating. I know we're all waiting to paint, and I know, let's go over our materials, what we're going to need. So I want to make sure you have everything for today. And we're going to be using acrylic paint, so we're going to need 5 paint colors. Let's go with the color yellow, white, blue, red, and black. Okay, so those are our 5 paint colors today. We're using acrylic paint, my favorite type of paint to use. It dries quick, really nice, vibrant colors. But one more thing I want to point out about the acrylic paint is, if you do have, I know we're into the fall season here, and some of us are wearing our nice sweaters. So make sure you roll up your sleeves here, because we don't want to get any of this paint onto your clothing, because once you do, I'm sorry to say, but it won't wash out and you may be a little bit disappointed. So just be careful using this paint today. Let's see what else we're going to need. We're going to need 1 cup of water. We're going to need at least 1 paper plate, if not 2 is good as well, because we will be mixing some colors, and I know how it goes. Sometimes we get mixing away and we get having fun, and next thing we know, we're using up half the plate for just one color. So 2 is good. All right, let's see what else we're gonna need here. All right, some paper towels. So accidents do happen, right? With that cup of water. So we need to have that on hand, but I also like to use paper towel to clean our brush. So yeah, so whenever we're finished with one particular brush, we need to clean it. Paper towel helps us out. So we just take that brush, put it in here, wipe all the excess off onto the paper towel, get it into the water, and that will clean your brush up really good. All right, so there's some good advice for you to help you with the process of making this painting. All right, so let's see what else. Yeah, let's talk about our paintbrush. So yeah, if you have a one large brush, that's great. A medium brush, okay, so a step down, and a small brush. So 3 brushes, if you do have them, that's great. But I understand, things are, it's always a challenge to get the art supplies. So even if you have the one brush, you can do this, because I remember when I was a youngster, I didn't have a whole collection of brushes. If I have one brush, I can do this, and you can do it too. So, all right, let's see what else. Yeah, so now we're down to our painting surface. As you can see, the original here is 9 by 12 inches. I got a little bit of canvas here, so I'm working with what I have today. I only have, 11 by 14. So I'm going to be making a little bit of a bigger painting here today. So yeah, so work with what you have. It may be just a sheet of paper that you're painting on today. That's fine. Piece of Bristol board, that's great. Or if you have something like this, a piece of canvas, that's even better. That's awesome. All right, so there we go. I'm just going to put this aside here. I'm going to switch things up here. All right, so for our painting surface today, I want you to use it in what is called a portrait setting. And what I mean by that is the long sides of our canvas are vertical, as opposed to turning it this way. The long sides, as you can see, are horizontal. That's called landscape. But today, we're going to be having this in a portrait setting. So have your canvas up, vertical, and we're good to go. All right, let's get ready to paint. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to start at the bottom of our canvas. We're going to create that the dish with one spoon wampum bout. And what we're going to need to do is we're going to have some white and a small amount of black. Because what we're going to do is we're going to mix up a gray color. All right, so let's add a little bit of white paint here. And as I mentioned, a very, very, very small amount of black. And I'm just going to put that off to the side here. So that by putting it off to the side, it gives me an option where, okay, I'm just going to grab a little bit. I'm going to push it over into the white. I'm going to mix that up and see what I get. All right, so if you have the large brush, let's use that now. Let's take a little scoop of that black, and let's add it to the white here. Let's mix that up. And like I said, when we do this, it's going to make the color gray. Okay, all right, this is coming along quickly. Certainly the big brush really helps us out here, getting these 2 colors mixed together. And let's see here. So I'm pretty happy with this. This is a nice looking gray here. Now, because I am on video, I'm going to make this just a little bit darker so that you can see more clearly what I'm doing as we're working along our project here. Now, as my good friend Sherry pointed out at the beginning, this is a step-by-step instruction. So I'm going to walk you through the process, recreating the painting. All right, so there we go. A little bit darker here. Good, good, good. All right, that should be better. So you should be able to see that a little bit more clearly. And now we're ready to create. And let's do this. Let's make this paint. All right. First thing we're going to do is we're going to divide this canvas in half by creating a horizontal line. So let's take that brush. Let's go straight across. Find a halfway mark. If you want, do a little mark right here and a little mark right there. All right. Connect the dots, or connect those 2 points with a horizontal line. So straight across. All right, there we go. We divided that canvas right in half. Okay, I'm just gonna put that right there for now. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a rectangle. All right, so we're gonna make this shape here. That's gonna be the dish once we get to the color purple. So we're gonna add or make a band or a bar of color here of gray and at the bottom. So I'm gonna make this a little bit thicker and you may want to as well. Okay, so let's make this a little bit thicker here. All right, let's get this edge of our wampum belt here a little bit thicker. Let's thicken up that little gray line there. All right, that looks pretty good right there. Now I want to do the same thing at the bottom. Okay, so I'm gonna go down here, make another horizontal line. Okay, so I want to get it the same thickness as the top. Okay, so there we go. There's our first step. Now, as I mentioned, we're going to make a rectangle on the inside here. So what we need to do next is we're going to make some vertical lines now. So I'm going to say, I'm going to go right about here. There's my very first vertical line. I want to match up the space on the other side here. Let's see here. So I'm going to go over here, and that's about the same amount of space. I'm going to get these a little bit straighter here, straight up and down. Okay, so once we've done that, let's fill these two areas in solid gray. Okay, there we go. There's our rectangle. Almost looks like a little bit of a square, but that's okay. Could be a little bit longer, but yeah, it's still okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to work on the corners of our rectangle now. I'm going to go back to our original, and we're going to add some of the gray right in here. Okay, you can see that. So it almost looks like look like little squares on the inside of that rectangle. I'm going to show you a little trick here of how we can also use our brush as well instead of, to create some finer lines. I'm going to go on the back here. So we've been using this brush like this, right? Using, the full width of that brush, creating some pretty thick lines. But take a look. If I turn my brush sideways, look how skinny that brush looks now. By doing this, I can actually paint a line by turning my brush sideways to create some thinner lines. So look at that, much thinner compared to the full width. So consider turning your brush sideways to create some thinner lines. And you can do that for any type of brush. And when I do this, I can create those little squares a lot easier. So let's do that. Let's make these little squares here in the corner of that rectangle. It looks something like that. And once we've done that, let's just fill this in. All right, so there's the basic shape we want here. I could have done a little bit of better job here and a little bit better job there, but we're gonna cover this with purple. Purple is a darker color. I can still fix this up. That's the beauty of acrylic paint, is that sometimes you may not be quite happy with how something looks, but the good thing about this paint, it dries fast, about 10-15 minutes. And when it does that, we can paint right over top of things and fix them up. So yeah, so I'm not too worried about how this looks. Now, I think one more detail before we move on, and that's creating this another rectangle on the inside of the image that we've just created. All right, so I'm gonna go back here. Get a little bit of paint on my brush, not much. Turn my brush sideways. I'm gonna do 2 vertical lines. On the inside, same height or same height, length. Connect those together. And there's my rectangle. And now I can fill this in. All right, so we'll leave it at this for now. We'll give everybody a few more minutes here because we all work at our own pace. So a little bit of time here to work it out. Before we move on to our next step. Okay, guys, let's get ready for our next step. Okay, so here we are with our big brush. Let's clean that brush up now. Once again, grab a little bit of piece of paper towel. Let's wipe off all the excess onto that paper towel. This is gonna help us clean that brush up. I'm gonna squeeze it out because there's paint trapped inside those bristles. All right, there's one piece. I'm gonna grab another one. Yeah, hopefully you have a good supply of paper towel here. All right, and just heat. Yeah, see lots of paint inside that brush. And now I'm gonna get it into the water here. So we're gonna let this gray area dry. We'll come back to it after. In the meantime, we're gonna work at the top part of our canvas next. Okay, there we go. All right, let's take a look at what we're gonna do next. All right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna create the strawberry. We're just gonna create the red shape here, the shape of that strawberry. All right, so we're gonna be using some red. So let's add some red paint to our paper plate. Also, once again, we can still continue using our big brush if we want, or if it's the only brush we have, let's continue working at. It should be nice and clean, but if you do have a smaller brush like the medium brush, let's downsize. Let's use this brush to create the strawberry. All right, some red. Medium brush. Let's get a little bit of red paint on that brush. Let's get ready to create this strawberry. All right, once again, the reason why I chose the strawberry is because it represents everything that's within that dish. the plants, the animals, that food that we need, that nutrition. And the strawberry is a nice, colorful berry, one of my favorites. So let's create this strawberry. All right, so what we can do is we can start at the top here and start to make some curved lines. And I think we have a good idea of what that strawberry looks like. So it looks something like that, right? There's a good outline for our strawberry. So once again, it started at the top, start to curve down, get a little bit straight, do a big loop here and come back up this side and loop it around and then join that together. And there's the shape of our strawberry. Let's fill that in. Okay, that is good. Sorry, guys, I also forgot to mention, let's put it off to the side here. So we got some room here. Remember, we're going to make 2 stick figures as well as part of the design at the top. Okay, so there's our strawberry. Now we are finished with that color. We're going to be moving on. We're going to be using the color blue next. So let's get this brush cleaned up. Once again, more paper towel here. Wipe off the excess. Get it into the water. And have a nice clean brush for the next time when we come back to it. Okay, back to our original here. So yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to surround or fill in the area surrounding that shape of the strawberry we've just created. So we're going to use the color blue next. And as well, we're going to go back to that big brush if you have it, right? Let's use that brush. We've got a good amount of space here to fill in, so that big brush will make our work a lot quicker. Okay, so let's go with some blue. Big brush. Blue, let's load it up. Let's fill in the area surrounding our strawberry. Okay, so this whole entire area, let's fill that in with the color blue. Let's get it pretty close down here. We don't have to, you can leave a little sliver. I'm going to say leave a sliver of white. Okay, so bring that blue close to the gray. You don't have to get it right close. Leave a little sliver there. This is where we're going to put some grass next too. So yeah, it's not really important that we get it right close to the gray. Okay, so one little area of concern that does require some good focus though is getting that blue right up close to the strawberry or the edge of the strawberry there. Other than that, it's pretty easy, straightforward, just filling in this area. All right, so what we want to do here as well is that we want a good, nice, even coat of paint. So work that brush back and forth. Let's spread that paint out. Okay, so we don't want it too lumpy or built up with that blue paint. Otherwise, it'll take a long time to dry. And we want this to dry. So it's important to spread that paint out as much as we can, working that brush back and forth, getting a nice even coat of paint. Okay, nice solid looking blue here. Now we will revisit this area as well. We're going to add a little bit of highlight color to create, if we want to throw in some clouds in there too, we can do that, or we can show the movement of wind. But yeah, we're going to revisit this area once it's dry. But for now, let's leave it like that. And we'll get ready. Let's make some grass. We'll get ready to make that grass. We're going to mix another color. Okay, let's make that grass. So we have to mix a new color, which is the color green. All right, we don't have green with the colors that we have, but we have the colors to mix two of them together. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make some green. So let's add some yellow to our paper plate. Just put it off to the side of the blue. Okay, so take a little scoop of that yellow and blue, and let's downsize once again to our medium brush to do this work, or continue working with the big brush. The big brush will work as well. And let's mix these two colors together and let's make a nice grass green here. Now you may be wondering why we're putting some grass into this particular painting is because, well, when I think about how Indigenous people came into these talks about how we're going to have these treaties, and we talk about the length of how long they could last. And knowing that, knowing this, I thought about this saying that I've come to know over the years: as long as the grass grows and the river flows and the sun keeps shining, that's how long we come into these treaty negotiations. That's how long we want it to last, and that's a long time when we think about it. Yes, as long as the grass grows, the river flows, and the sun keeps shining, that's how long these treaties will last. There we go. So there we got our green. Let's make some grass. This is where we're going to get up close now to that edge of the gray. Okay, you can see I'm starting to overlap. Right, so I've got a nice band of color here. And now this is where we can get quite expressive with how we want to make that grass look. So as you can see, I'm taking my brush now. Once again, turn your brush sideways, right, to make some skinnier brush strokes here. You can see I'm brushing away and creating some grass just by doing this. It could be at an angle. It could be at an angle or straight up and down like this. Yeah, let's see how that grass, how it looks. That's the good thing about art. Now, if we want this a little bit more dynamic or make it stand out a little bit more, let's add a little bit of white or yellow. I'm going to give you the option here. I'm going to add a little bit of white right next to my green here. So I'm going to lighten this up a little bit. All right, so we're going to be mixing a little bit of white into this green, and we should make a nice light green here. So I'm going to mix that together. All right, so this is what is called a highlight. I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow over here as well. I'm going to mix this together. Now we don't need very much here as well. All right, that is pretty good right there. A lighter green. And yeah, let's put some of that right in here like this. I'm going to go here with the vertical because I went vertical here in my brush stroke. And I'm going to go back to doing it on an angle over here. There. That's all it needs. Just a little bit of highlight to make that grass stand out a little bit more dynamic. As long as grass grows, river flows, and the sun keeps shining. All right, so there also is one more area where we're going to need a little bit of green, and that's on top of the strawberry. So let's do that as well. So you can see at the top, we need some green there as well. Now we can continue working with our medium brush, but this is a little area that's even smaller. So if you do have the luxury of having a smaller brush, consider downsizing to that smaller brush to do this work. Otherwise, for those who only have the medium or the one brush, let's continue working with this. And I'm going to put some green right on top of the strawberry here. Okay, once again, to make this even more dynamic and stand out, let's add a little bit of highlights here. All right, there we go. There's all the green that we need for our painting project. Okay, so once we've done that, completed those details, let's clean this brush up. Once again, grabbing a piece of paper towel, wiping all that excess off, and get it into the water. We'll get ready and see what we're going to do next. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go turn our attention to the bottom part of our canvas once again. We're going to work on that the dish with one spoon next. So should be nice and dry. Okay, let's get ready for our next step. As I mentioned, we're going to go back down to the bottom part of our painting, and we're going to fill in the dish now. So we're going to need to be mixing the color purple next. Okay, so as you can see, my plate is beginning to fill up with colors. Maybe for some of you, you have already moved on to your second plates. Maybe some of you, maybe at this time, could consider starting a second plate if you have it. I'm going to try to use up the little spot that I have here, and I'm going to make some purple. All right, so we can go back to our bigger brush or continue working with our medium brush for this next step. I'm going to give you that option. Let's make some purple here. Red and blue, equal amount of paint. Let's mix that together. Once again, this purple represents the quahog shell, which is found on the eastern part of Turtle Island. And this shell was used to make all those purple wampum beads that you can see in the wampum belts. And to think about the amount of work that each bead as part of the wampum belt was made by hand, handmade. That is amazing to think about, and how much time and skill it took to make those beads. All right. We have our purple ready. Our brush is loaded. Let's fill in this shape now to make the dish. Dish and the spoon. Yeah, pretty good. I'm gonna get this line straightened up here a little bit. That's a good thing. Like I said, the good thing about acrylic paint, it dries quick. We can fix things just by painting over top of them. That's looking pretty good there. Yeah, now I can fix this if I want. A little bit too much gray over here, so I'm gonna go right in here like this. Start to fix things up a little bit. Get this dish looking a little bit better. Once again, if you need to make some smaller lines, getting into those detailed areas, turn your brush sideways. Okay, getting close to finishing this here. Okay, there we go. There's my dish and one spoon. And once again, once we finish that step, let's get that big brush cleaned up. More paper towel here, wiping all the excess off here. And getting this brush ready for the next step. Getting it into the water as well. Okay, so our water's getting a little bit dirty here. For our next step, we're going to be using the color white. So the good thing about today's class is that it is recorded. So if you want to take a little bit of time to pause the video, if our students can get some new clean water, that would be helpful as well. But I think we could still use this if we really had to. But having nice, fresh, clean water is really good as well. So yeah, so take a little bit of moment. Let's pause the video if you need to, and we'll get ready for the next step. Okay, so we've got our nice clean cup of water here. As I mentioned, we're going to be using the color white. Okay, so I'm looking at my paper plate here. I'm going to start my second plate, and let's add some white paint to this paper plate here. So what we're going to do with this next step is we're going to begin to determine what those white wampum beads look like. Right, so there's some white paints. I'm going to use our big brush or the medium brush, depending on the size of canvas and surface that we're painting today. It's a little bit of a judgment call. Go with your instincts. If the bigger brush will do the work for us, let's do that. If you want to downsize or give it a try, start out with the big brush. You think, okay, that's pretty good. But let's go with that. Or you feel it's a little bit too big, downsize. Let's start to make these wampum beads right at the bottom here of our dish. So we're just going to go all the way along the edge here, making them the same height. Okay, so just start things here, determining how much of a brush stroke we need there. And let's just continue going all the way across. Now I'm going to go back the other way and finish the bottom row. Oh, I'm a little bit crooked here. That's all right though. There, straighten it out a little bit. All right, so there we go. There's our first row of white wampum beads right at the bottom. we can do the same thing here at the top. Let's do that next. So if you like, rotate your canvas 180 degrees. And just like we did at the bottom, let's start right here. Here's our starting point. Full width. There's my first brush stroke. Get that looking a little better here. And now I'm just going to continue. Going along here just like I did the first time. All right, right to the edge, right to the edge. And now I'm going to go back the other way. All right, so this step certainly takes a lot of focus, right? Trying to get these same brush strokes consistent all the way along. So it's a little bit of a challenge making these wampum beads. But yeah, think about the work though. Remember I was talking about how an artist individually handcrafted those wampum beads. And to have them all the same size and the same width. Lots of skill involved with making that wampum belt. All right, so there we go. Now we can begin to fill the inside here. All right, so I'm going to just start right here in that little square and just continue to add more wampum beads. Now they won't be the same size simply because we're just doing this by freehand. But once again, we have the idea that it's just an artistic expression. We get the idea of what it kind of looks like. All right, so as you can see, I did that part and I'm switched. I did a 180 turn. Going over to this side here, start to fill in that wampum belt. And yeah, you can see it's coming along here. It's coming along. Now we just got these little 2 areas to fill. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go 1, 2, maybe a little bit 2.5. And I'm gonna go 1, 2, and a little bit there. That completes that side. There we go. Now I got this to fill in. All right, that is looking good, but we still have one more final detail, and that's on the inside here, that beaver tail or that spoon. So I'm going to put 2 brush strokes in here to represent 2 wampum beads, and that will complete the white portion of our wampum belt. Okay, so we're almost complete the dish with 1 spoon wampum belt. We have one more thing to do before we move on to the back, or sorry, the top of our canvas. And yeah, let's take a look at the original here. So, all right, so here we are. We've completed all this here. We did this. Now, as you can see, we're going to do the same thing on the inside of the dish. So we're going to create or mix up a light purple now and continuing on making those wampum beads. Same idea, just exactly what we did, putting white over top of the gray. So we're going to put a light purple over that dark purple. All right, so I'm going to go back to my first plate here. I got lots of purple here. I'm just going to take a real good scoop of this. You might want to do the same thing too if you have some purple, or some of us may need to mix some more purple. But anyways, let's get some purple. Let's add it to this white. Let's mix this together. And as you can see, it makes a lighter purple. And we're going to use this to finish the inside of that dish. Okay, there we go. That's a good looking purple. Brush is loaded. All right. I'm going to start right here. And I'm just going to start to fill this area here. Let's see how many brush strokes I can get in there. Well, look at that. I can only get 3 in there. So there's 3. I'm going to go back up here, turn my canvas 180 again. There you go. There's our first step. Okay, let's continue on finishing or filling in our dish here. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add a couple in here. We got enough room for 2 there. I'm going to 2 more here, and that will complete that side, this side here. And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And for sure, this will finish off our dish with 1 spoon wampum belt. And there we go. Okay, guys, so far so good. I hope you're all having fun making this painting. I certainly am enjoying it. Lots of fun making this painting. All right, so we're getting very close to completing our painting. We have a little bit more work to do up top here. And let's take a look at what we're going to do next. Let's look at the original here. All right, so as I mentioned, we've already laid down that first coat of blue paint. We're going to go back to this area, and you can see I've added some highlights here onto the background here. So this is where we're going to get back to loosening things back up here and have a little bit of fun and be more expressive in creating this highlight here of light blue. So let's do that next. All right, so once again, let's make sure our big brush is clean. So we're just finishing up with the purple. I'm going to wipe all that excess off onto the paper towel. Okay, there we go. Get that brush into the water. Let's get ready to create some highlights. All right, so, all right, there's my first plate. Still no room here. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna work with my second plate here. So that means I'm gonna have to add a little bit of blue and a little bit of white. All right, just a small amount is all we need. I'm gonna mix that together. Well, might need a little bit more white here. I want this a little bit lighter blue. All right, that's looking good. Nice light blue. And like I said, this step here, gives a lot of freedom as to how we want this to look. Like I said, sometimes we can think of it as, well, this is the sky, but also in the sky, we can have some wind blowing. It could be like this, right? Show the wind moving around. That's one option here. If you want to create something like that, get real creative with your brush strokes here. Or like I said, some of us may want to make some clouds. You can do that too. So I'm going to put a little puffy cloud over here. So yeah, so you got a little bit of creative freedom here as to what this background looks like or creating this highlight. So let's do that. Let's have some fun. Like I said, things are loosened up here because we did a lot of good work here. It takes a lot of focus and attention to detail, getting this just right? But up here, it's a little bit more free. We can have a little bit more fun with our brush strokes. So that's what I like about this part too. Yeah, we can mix it up, right? Okay, so once you've done that, you're complete with your highlights. Let's clean that big brush up once again. More paper towel here. Yes, let's get that brush nice and clean. And this pretty much finishes our use for our big brush now, because now we're just getting into a little bit more finer details. And we only have 2 more details to our painting, and then we're finished for our project for today. Okay, big brush is clean. Let's take a look at what we're going to do next. So 2 more remaining details to our painting that we've yet to create or left to create, and that's creating the seeds on the strawberry. And then of course, these 2 stick figures here. Let's do the seeds first. A little easier, a little bit quicker step. So if you need to, let's add some more yellow. Our paper plate. Now, what I'm going to show you here is also a new technique. Technique is defined as the way we do something. And in painting, we can use different techniques in order to achieve a certain effect. And if we look closely, let's look at that once again, back to our strawberry here. Let's look closely here. And you can see all these little dots are perfectly made. Well, that's what I'm going to show you is a very, very easy technique in how we can do this and create this perfect little circle or dot. All right, so once again, we need to add a little bit of yellow. And let's go back to that big brush. Sorry about that, we're going to use it one more time. Big brush, but you know what? We're not going to use the end with the bristles. We're going to use the other end of that brush. And you can already see I've been using it already. So let's take the tip of that brush, let's put it into the yellow. And this gives us a lot of control as to where we want to place those little dots. All right, so there's my brush. Got the yellow paint on the end. It's loaded up, and now I just go like this. Look at that. Just one little dab, little dot is created when I do this. So let's make those little seeds here. I'm going to reload, do a couple, probably reload again. So you may, it may only be good for one or two little dots here. You're going to have to go back and reload. One thing also, it's important that the paint is a little bit thinned out. If it's a little bit thick, it may not work as effectively as we like. So consider, you may have to add a little bit of water, just depending on the type of paint you're using as well. All right, so there's all my strawberry seeds. Pretty easy to create using that method of just dabbing that yellow paint onto the canvas or the painting surface. Okay, so there we go. There's our second to last step. And yeah, we got one more step before our painting is finished for today. And that's creating those two figures, stick figures. Okay, so we're down to our final step. Let's take a look at the original. Let's see what we have to do next. Okay, there we go. We're going to make these two people. So we're going to need to add the color black to our paper plate. All right, so for this step, the brush we can use, we can still certainly use that medium brush if we need to, but for those of us who may have a smaller brush, let's use that at this time. We can do that. So a little bit more detailed work creating these lines. So a smaller brush is good, but also if you only have one brush or a medium brush, we can still do this as well. Remember, going back to turning our brush sideways to create some thinner lines. So I'm going to continue working on with my medium brush here for those who only have one brush. And let's see where we're going to start. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to create two lines that come together and form like a peak. And what I mean by that, a good example is the roof of your house. It goes like this, right? A peak comes to a point. That's going to be the legs. I'm going to do this over here. I'm going to repeat that. So I'm going to make two of those, just like that. Okay, so we're going to continue working on the next thing here. And all we're going to do is going to create two vertical lines. So two lines that are going up and down, straight up and down. This is going to be the body or the torso. Think of it that way. And there we go. Same height. Pretty close. I'm just going to put my ruler there, not my ruler, but my brush there. Pretty close to being the same heights. And now we're going to create the arms. So let's look at the original, see what we're going to do here. All right, so for the first arm, we're going to have these right in the middle here. You can see that they're joined together. So let's do that. So start at the top of that line. let's make a line that's on an angle. Go back here, a little bit more paint on my brush. I'm going to start right here at the top of that line. I'm going to make this line right here, about halfway. So halfway, in this little space there, let's make that line end right there, halfway. And now I'm going to go to the other side and create or paint another line that connects or joins these two lines together. It looks something like this. There we go. Okay, so all that remains is the other two arms, which are pretty simple, very straightforward. Just start at the top here. I'm going to put it on the angle there and do the same thing over here, and that will complete all the arms. And that just puts us down to our final detail, and that's creating the heads and creating a small circle. All right, so there you go. I'm going to finish this one off here. So, all right, so there's our two people symbolizing, once again, talking about treaties and making those agreements of how they're going to share the land, nation to nation. And that's our final detail for our painting today. The dish with one spoon. Well, thank you for joining me today, everybody. I hope you had some fun creating today. I certainly had fun sharing with you and talking about a very important subject today for Treaty Week. And yeah, feel free to share that with your parents and talk about what we've learned today. And it's all good. Miigwech. Thank you.
Thank you, Moses. That was an absolute wonderful, wonderful session, and I hope our students really enjoyed it. There were so many great nuggets of information and education there. So we look forward to seeing all your pictures. Please, everybody, tweet it out. We'll see you soon.